Hello, today I'm going to be demonstrating our Pathwise application, which is a crowdsourced accessibility map. To start, I'm going to be creating an account just to show that functionality. Let's say our email Wolverine222 at gmail.com. And then we can just make our password Pathwise. So you can see we're just brought into this page where we have the locations that are previously in our database. You can see reviews from other users, aka me, and we can go to our profile tab. We can see that we have our name Wolverine, our email. We'll have a list of our reviews if we had any, but we don't. You can see our favorites are empty. But now I'm going to be signing out and logging into my account to demonstrate our sign-in process. So we load into the same application page where it's just the database that's currently available to all users. But we can see, I have a review on Pancheros. I can go to my profile. I can see my review on Pancheros. We can go to my favorites. We can see that I have the IM building favorited. So let's say I want to favorite Pancheros. I can go to my favorites and I can see Pancheros is right there. Also, in our favorite menu, we can toggle by rating or by name. So my rated or the highly rated locations will be at the top. And then we can also search. So INT is going to bring up the Intramural Sports Building. And the same goes for our browse page. As you can see, 7-Eleven is down here at the bottom. We can just go up to here and type in 7 and 7-Eleven is going to appear. Like I said, we have this map that we can browse the different locations. Um, you can see all the pinpointed locations that are currently in the database. So if I were to just scroll into here, you could see this is the corner where Dunkin' Donuts is. And say I wanted to go to the IM, I just simply click on this header and I'll be brought right to the where the IM is. Let's say that I want to add a review for the IM. I'm just gonna click review and get this little menu pop up. Let's give it 4 stars. It's wheelchair accessible. There's braille, there's handicap parking. The doors are automatic and they do have an elevator. Um, Great building. So let's just submit our review. And then you can see Jack has a review where he says great building, and these are the tags that I added. And then we can go to my profile and we can see that I have added a review for the IM. Now, let's say that I go somewhere that's not on these locations in our database. So I'm going to go to add. I can review it. So let's give it 2 stars. And we are going to let's do the ugly. So I am just going to add Shapiro library, location type. Right now we just have other for a place like a library, but we do have tags like restaurant, cafe. And then for address, we are just going to put the address of the ugly South University Avenue. That's going to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, zip code 48109. And I know they have automatic doors and an elevator. I don't believe they have any handicap parking, and they are wheelchair accessible. Great study spot we could add, and then we'll just submit this. And then we can see that Shapiro Library has been added at 2 stars. And here's the address. in my review, and I can go to profile and see that the Shapiro library has been added to my reviews. From then I can favorite it because I reviewed it and I want to favorite, and we can see that it is here. All right, that's all for my demo. Thank you.
Hello, I will now provide a brief summary of the tech stack that we used for our application. So our entire front end was built using Vue, a lightweight JavaScript framework that we had some previous experience with. We also chose Vue because it was portable, so that allowed us to develop our application as a web app, but would make switching to a mobile app, which is our intended sort of final deliverable form in the future, straightforward. Now, for the backend, it was primarily written using Nest.js, which is itself built on top of Express. Nest is a very opinionated backend framework, so that was nice, and it allowed us to easily scale up our sort of the complexity of our backend while following a very strict set of guidelines that made integrating with it very straightforward. We also chose Nest because of its ease of integration with Prisma. Now, Prisma is an object relational manager, so it basically allows us to define our database schema in a sort of plain text, human readable manner, which is great for reproducibility, ease of integration, and sort of scalability. It also would allow us to directly import that Prisma schema into Nest, so that could use a pre-built sort of query structure rather than raw SQL, which is not only safer but easier to work with. As mentioned, we used Postgres as our main relational database, and we also had a MinIO object store, which is an S3 compatible object store with the same API that was also easy to integrate with. Finally, we used Passport to help manage our authentication system. Uh, as it's commonly known, never roll your own crypto. So Passport simplified and abstracted away some of the complexity of managing a JSON Web Token based authentication system. Finally, everything was containerized using Docker. So this allowed us to all easily develop, even though we were all using different local operating systems. We could all easily develop and run the entire application locally on our own computers without any compatibility issues. This is also great for any future deployment, as containerized applications are very much easier to deploy and sort of the way everything's tending. So that's why we elected to use Docker.
Hello, I'm going to be talking about some of the planning and preliminary work we did before starting development of Pathwise. Here, our primary persona is a person named Jay, who has recently moved to Ann Arbor and would like a convenient and up-to-date way to view accessibility information about buildings in the area. Jay is detail-oriented, tech-savvy, and community-minded. Returning to this persona throughout development helped us center the experiences of the user. We also took a look into existing products in this space, like Access Now and Wheelmap, with the goal of taking away best practices and picking up on trends, especially in how to design with public crowdsourcing in mind. Finally, we looked into human-computer interaction research in the area of interactive maps. These elements of preliminary work gave us a good foundation upon which to design and build Pathwise.
Hello. This is our discussion of some of the challenges that we faced, as well as how we overcame them throughout our semester-long MDE project. So just jumping right in here, the first issue that I wanted to talk about was the problem of integrating the front end and the back end systems. So the way that we went about our project was we split up into teams. One team took the front end, one team took the back end. Everything went well, but then it came time to integrate both parts together, and we naturally just face some issues. I think it's just a natural thing, different teams working on different projects. There's going to be some conflicts when you finally merge things. So sort of how we conquered those, how we fixed those problems. The first thing that we really needed to do was make sure that the data structures line up, right? So here I've got the back end schema pulled up for a location, so we can see, you have the type of location, the name, the address, the city, state, country, all of these things. What we needed to do was actually make sure that this lined up well with the front end. So now at the final product, we have everything lining up well. We have the the location, the type, the address, city, state, everything that you saw in the schema. But initially, we weren't sure, which way which team was going to go with things. So it really took a lot of just communication and getting on a meeting and talking through things, and we were able to solve that issue pretty quickly. But it was also an important issue because that's something that's very important. You have to make sure everything is talking with each other. Another issue that we had was in actually integrating the systems, right? So different teams are working with different operating systems. Their setups have different dependencies, all of these things. We were using Docker, so we were able to minimize that a bit. But there were still some issues, So how we were actually able to get everything working together, make sure everything works on everyone's system, was just strong documentation, right? So here we have the backend documentation from our GitHub, and we can just see we've got a very detailed README here about how to set everything up with Docker, how to get everything working, depending on what your operating system is, what dependencies you're going to need, things like that. And that really just that once both teams got that good documentation, we were able to fix that issue. No real problems there, so it was great. Additionally, another sort of challenge that we faced was coming on the front end with the map. So our ideal application had a map that you're able to move it around, you're able to see details on certain locations, zoom in, zoom out, just lots of interactivity, lots of customizability depending on the database, the data in the database, things like that. And our initial idea was to use an OpenStreetMap map, but we weren't able to get the customizability, the interactivity that we were really hoping for. So what we ended up doing was adding a leaflet plugin, and this enabled us to really achieve the results that we were gunning for, which was great, solved that issue. All right, so final sort of issue that we faced here. We've talked about an issue with integrating the front end and the back end. We've talked about an issue with the front end, with the map. Let's just talk about an issue from the back end, right? So the biggest issue that we sort of faced with the back end was that we initially dove into things. We didn't really have the planning there. We had an idea of where we wanted to go, but it wasn't really flushed out. So we ran into a lot of issues early on with just getting the API to actually return the data that we were hoping for. So how we were able to solve this was we took a step back. We really thought about what we needed our database to hold, what we needed our server to hold, how we wanted the user to be able to access that information. And do they need to just see it? Do they need to be able to create it? Things like that. And then we were able to scope out, plan out what our schemas need to look like to be able to properly work with the API, as well as how we can actually achieve those things. So after doing that, after taking that step back, really sort of planning things out, drawing out the details, making sure we were knowing where we were going, we were able to solve that issue. And that was a pretty big one, which is great.